Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. All right, people ask me all the time, okay, are revolvers useful for concealed carry? Should I choose a revolver over a semi-automatic? What are the pros and cons? We're going to go over some of these things and elaborate on it a bit further and answer this question for y'all. I get this question quite often, believe it or not. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting our videos. If you are looking for a career in gunsmithing, they are your go-to source for distance learning. They also just introduced a great drone program. Definitely check them out. Everything from gunsmithing to the business side of things, they are definitely great people. Wonderful instructors, great curriculum. Check them out, Sonoran Desert Institute, SDI, and tell them Eric sent you. The link down below will take you right there. Okay, so, I think the best thing to do here is to sort of break down, I think some people at a bird's eye level don't know the basics. We're going to go over some extremely basic information real quick just for the uninitiated that might be stumbling across this video that may not know. Okay, well, what is a dang revolver? Okay, essentially, a revolver has a fixed barrel. All right, I'm going to discuss the most distinguishing characteristics of this gun that make it special, okay? One is the fixed barrel. The barrel doesn't move, so generally revolvers are very accurate because of the rigid fixed barrel. Also, revolvers operate with a cylinder, okay, that rotates. A cartridge goes into each chamber, individual chamber in the cylinder, and as you fire the gun, the cylinder rotates, sets off each cartridge. I'm sure you've seen plenty of cowboy movies. You hit the ejector rod, you throw the spent cases out, you use a speed loader or load individual rounds, close the cylinder, and get back to shooting. Not so fast to reload, right? Unless you're Jerry Michalik or someone like that. An auto loader, for those of you that don't know, all right, an auto loader uses a magazine, and the rounds are loaded into this magazine, and then through a firing cycle, a semi-automatic firing cycle, the trigger's pressed, sets off the cartridge, shoots the bullet out of the gun, reciprocates, throws the shell out, strips a new round in out of the magazine, you squeeze the trigger again, the gun fires, and the cycle continues until the gun is empty and the magazine holds the slide to the rear. At a bird's eye level, that's how semi-auto pistols work. Each have their pros and cons, okay? Most people today generally carry an auto-loading pistol of some sort. I have a Glock 19X right here. This is definitely one of my go-to choices. It's a fantastic pistol, but of course, I'm not here to talk about what my favorite pistol is, but that I tend to be in the camp of people that prefer an auto-loader over a revolver. But what would be some reasons that you might want to have a revolver, and what would be the pros and cons of the revolver? Well, one of the biggest draws to a pistol, y'all, is capacity. All right, so in this magazine, I've got a 17 round mag body from a standard Glock 17 with their +2, or I think it's a +2. So this holds 19 rounds plus one in the chamber. That gives you 20 rounds. Okay, well, let's look at this revolver. This is a J-frame revolver from Smith & Wesson. Fantastic gun. They have been making, in some way, shape, or form, an iteration of this revolver for, gosh, I want to say like 50, 60 years now, quite some time, okay? But it holds 5 rounds of .38 special, okay? Now, 5 rounds is fine, but you've got a quarter of the ammo capacity of this Glock 19X. So right out the gate already, you're down a quarter of the capacity and firepower of the Glock. Now, you can see that this gun is much more compact than the Glock. You can see the size is much smaller. Throw this in a nice piece of Galco gun leather, and you've got a nice compact gun. So that's one area that maybe a revolver comes in pretty handy, and that's that a J-frame or something is a nice compact setup that is very slim and that disappears on your body much easier than a full-size autoloader like a Glock 19X, okay? Nothing wrong with either one of these guns, but each have their pros and cons. I prefer the capacity of an autoloader, because I want to have the quick mag change. And here's the thing, I've got 20 rounds in this gun. When this gun's empty, I'm just a quick mag change away, and I've got 20 more rounds on tap. Well, 19 if you don't count the +1 that I started with when I was carrying the gun. I've got 19 rounds on tap, which is a very nice thing to have. Now, a revolver, in order to match the firepower of this gun and one extra mag, I have to carry this revolver with a full cylinder and have to carry 9 speed loaders of ammunition on my person in order to match the firepower of 2 magazines of this Glock. Well, that's definitely concerning for some. So, all right, so the revolver is already looking, maybe not quite so much the option. I mean, if you go up against some baddies that are armed with pistols and you have a revolver, you're definitely undergunned. But we're going to get back to that. Let's look at the 1911. This is an awesome Ed Brown, by the way. Two-tone Ed Brown. Sweet pistol here. So, 1911, all right, it only holds like 7 or 8 shots. Okay, so this is a 45 ACP, but it's a full-size single-stack pistol. Now, some people choose to carry a 1911 instead of something like a double-stack polymer frame gun like a Glock or an M&P or a CZ or something like that. Well, see, this gun, it only gives you 1 or 2 rounds over the capacity of something like a J-frame. Full-size revolvers usually have 6 shots in the cylinder. So this being a J-frame is a 5-shot. Most revolvers hold 6. Okay, but still, even 6 is not a ton of firepower. If you compare 6 rounds in a revolver to 8 rounds in a 1911, okay, we're getting closer on capacity, but again, even the 1911 still has the fast magazine change. If you are okay with 8 shots, these guns are rather slim. They do disappear on your person quite easy, and you know, you would think that it's a large gun. It is a fairly big pistol, but it does conceal quite well. A 1911 is a great carry gun if you don't mind the niceties and finities of the system. And some would say shortcomings. I'm not going to get into that in this particular video. But I do like the 1911. I think it's a fantastic pistol. Would I carry a 1911 over a revolver? Yeah, totally would. But I'm not here to bash revolvers. I love revolvers. So let's talk about where a revolver, in some cases, might be better than these other 2 options when we're talking about pros and cons here. Well, I guess to discuss the pros, we must first discuss the cons, okay? This J-frame revolver is great, but what is one area that we're going to definitely lose some points here with this being such a compact pistol? Well, one is the barrel length, okay? Even though we are firing a more powerful cartridge, okay? We can talk about the cartridges, okay? But even though revolvers tend to shoot generally more powerful cartridges than their semi-auto counterparts, generally, it is safe to say that with the shorter barrel, you are losing some of the performance that cartridge has, you know, available to it. And I had this talk with my good friend Tim at Military Arms Channel. He was visiting my home, and I showed him one of my Smith & Wesson wheel guns. And I said, hey, check out this 357 Magnum here that's got this, I think it had either 3 or 4 inch barrel. You know, I thought, okay, cool, 357 Magnum that's nice and compact. Well, that obviously has to be a hand cannon, right, that fits in a small compact package, and I've got a hard-hitting 357 Magnum. And Tim brought up a good point. He said, but yeah, Eric, with that barrel length, you're not really getting the full velocity. You might as well just shoot 9mm out of a handgun. And I got to thinking about it, and then I started looking at some of the math, and while, yes, there is a marginal performance of 357 Magnum or even 38 Special out of a short barrel that trumps 9mm by a decent amount, is it enough to justify limiting yourself to 5 or 6 shots in a revolver over having the extra shots in a semi-auto? I can't say that answer is yes. For one, shooting revolvers double action does take some skill and practice to shoot accurately. I'm good with a revolver in double action. Not everyone might be. Someone might be out of practice or have never shot them. A 9mm or something like this Glock is so easy to shoot fast follow-up shots accurately. You can quickly see why having that extra firepower, the fast follow-up shots and the magazine interchangeability, it does make the gun a more attractive option, even though you might be losing a little bit of power. So power is only useful if you can harness it in a way that benefits you, okay? So now that we got that little con out of the way, let's talk about the cartridges themselves. Most revolvers that people carry are generally going to be a 38 Special or a 357 Magnum. Some people carry 44 Special, 44 Magnum. I would say that that's generally not going to be the common use of a revolver for carry purposes. Most people that are carrying a revolver are going to be carrying some sort of a snub nose 38 Special because it's compact and easy to conceal, and the recoil generally is not too bad. Now, how does 38 Special in a snub nose compare to 9mm out of a full-size auto? Well, 9 mil, you know, look, with the newer powders that are out there and the newer projectile designs and the newer 9mm cartridges that we've seen come out over the last few decades, 9 mil is no slouch, and out of a full-length barrel it can definitely deliver the goods, okay? 38 Special is no slouch either, even out of a short barrel, especially within the ranges that you're typically going to defend yourself with a revolver at. A 38 Special does afford a reasonable amount of power even out of a short barrel. All right, so where does the revolver really begin to come into its own compared to the autoloader? Okay, well, if we need the power, if we're trying to harness power here, and we need that extra penetration, extra distance, heavier bullet, more energy, maybe it's a bigger assailant or possibly a large animal that we're talking about versus you know, a person that we're trying to defend ourselves from. Well, now, okay, a 357 Magnum with a 6-inch barrel, or possibly even an 8 3/4 inch barrel, like a long barrel. Now you're talking, now you're pushing a 357 Magnum, 158 grain bullet at some really good velocity, good accuracy, fixed barrel. Now you're really harnessing the power of the revolver. And of course, as you get up into 6 to 8 to maybe even 10-inch barrels in cartridges like 44 Magnum, 460 Smith & Wesson Magnum, 500 Magnum, you know, large Magnum cartridges like that, if you can shoot them accurately and you have a purpose that they serve, then obviously then you begin to see, okay, now when we add the power factor back into the revolver, now we see why someone would choose a revolver over an autoloader for carry purposes. This video is not necessarily about all the instances you would carry a gun. We're mainly talking about concealed carry for life and liberty, everyday type stuff. Okay, now would I feel unarmed if I had this J-frame revolver and I was going to check the mail or something and I just wanted to have a gun slip in my pocket to go check the mail? Am I going to get into some 20, 40 round gun battle going to check the mail? Well, I certainly hope not, okay? If I'm going to the grocery store, I live in a high trust society, okay? And I'm going to see half my neighbors at the grocery store because I live in a small little town and nothing ever happens. Am I unarmed if I have a J-frame revolver in my pocket? Heck no, I'm not, okay? So I think it's all about the circumstances that you might find yourself in and what you might need to protect yourself from, what you expect to protect yourself from. Are you worried about a bear attack? Well, then a 9mm Glock, no matter how many rounds it might hold, might not be as useful of a tool against a large, dangerous animal as maybe, hey, maybe you want to have a 460 Magnum or possibly a 44 Magnum revolver with a 6 or 8-inch barrel. You know, I would probably trust those 6 shots on a dangerous animal over the capacity of the Glock and the more anemic cartridge when you're trying to launch 9mm at a dangerous animal. Now there's an antidote to that, and that's called the Glock 40 MOS. Now you can buy a 40 MOS in 10mm with a long barrel, and now you've got 41 Magnum-ish, you know, power in an autoloader. Now we're not going to get on that subject right now, but 10mm in an autoloader does give you revolver-like power, even, you know, trumping 357 Magnum in some cases, okay? That's not necessarily a talk for today's video. That's a little bit further down the rabbit hole type of dive that maybe we can make in a future video. However, I will say that 10mm in an autoloader is not that bad to shoot. It's very comfortable. It hits hard, reasonably heavy bullets. With a long enough barrel, you've got some good velocity, so now you're even further closing the gap between autoloader and revolver when you're talking a full-size 10mm pistol. Now, I don't have one to show you. This is just more about everyday type carry. Now, getting back to the 1911, how does 45 ACP stack up against, you know, the 38 Special out of the snub nose? Well, a 45 ACP out of a full-length barrel is definitely no slouch. It's got a reasonable amount of good kinetic energy on target, and with some of the newer projectile designs and powder designs and things like that, 45 ACP is no slouch out of a long barrel. Definitely trumps the 38 Special for sure, not only in distance, but I would say in energy, especially in a close range type of environment. So the 45 is still going to have an edge over the 357, or I'm sorry, the 38 Special. And again, remember, all these comparisons that I make are generally between a full-length handgun and a snub-nose revolver. And the reason is because most people that are going to carry a revolver are generally going to use a snub-nose or J-frame type revolver, a Colt Detective, Colt Agent or a little gun like this, or like an old Rossi or Taurus, you know, small frame revolver, something like that, okay? So hopefully this, you know, video points some of you in the right direction. Is a revolver a good tool for concealed carry? You better bet it is. And there's a reason they still make them. There's a reason that Smith & Wesson's still a billion-dollar company to this day. I mean, they are making tons of guns. It's just crazy to think that revolvers, even though it is sort of an antiquated and older type of technology, it still holds on to this day because it still has a certain level of pertinence to it. And I suppose I could end this video by saying that maybe from a legal perspective, you might live somewhere where auto loaders are not allowed to be carried. Now that sucks. You should change your laws, obviously. However, there might be areas where you might not be able to carry a full-size Glock or something like that. So maybe a wheel gun is all you can legally carry where you're at. So there are instances in today's world where wheel guns still fit within the paradigm of carry use, hunting use. I didn't even really discuss using revolver as a dedicated tool for hunting. Now, there are hunters out there that hunt exclusively with revolvers. They will use a full-length 500 or a full-length 460 Magnum, or maybe even a nice Performance Center 44 Magnum revolver or something like that. And they'll go out and take to the woods and they'll use that as their primary tool. Maybe they're retired or have a shoulder injury and they can't shoot their, you know, full-length 30-06 anymore or something. A revolver gives them an opportunity to still get out and harvest animals in the woods, but not have to carry around a big heavy rifle or subject themselves to a bunch of recoil in their shoulder. Maybe they've got a bad shoulder or arthritis or something. So there's many reasons that people might use a revolver over a rifle, even for hunting purposes. That's a different lane, but I wanted to kind of put that out there. So guys and girls, thanks so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully this puts the question to bed. I really appreciate the continued support. We have so much content on the way, and I'm really stoked for you guys to see what we have coming up in the future. Tons of great stuff on the way. But thank you so much. Many more videos on the way. We'll see you soon.